Hello, my name is Wakata, and welcome to the end of the series, Pixel Perfect, episode 70. Now, I know a fair amount of people skip the intro, but this is kind of important. And while I am known to ramble on occasion, I ask for your indulgence and that you stick around for a few. You see, I do get a bit attached to things, and I am prone to sentimentality. And wrapping up a project that has been over 2 years in the making feels monumental and a bit sad and a bit exciting as it opens up the door to new projects. I know it's just a game, but this series represents over 2 years of my life, thousands of hours of investment, and will become a small recorded part of my history. I'm glad we undertook it, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for us. Since last episode, I've been thinking a lot about this intro, as I'm prone to do. There's so much I want to say that it could fill an entire episode, but we don't have time for that. And while this is the end of the series, it's not the end of the channel. So when I really thought about what to include in this intro, I came to a realization that it's not what I want to say, it's what I need to say. Once I realized that, honestly, the intro became simple. There's only one thing I need to say. It's thank you. Thank you for the time you've spent watching my videos. If you have been here from the beginning, or if this is the first one you've clicked on. Thank you for the positive comments, the thumbs up letting YouTube know I'm doing something right, the feedback that has helped shape the direction of the series, and for the crazy amount of hours many of you have spent hanging out with me on live streams while working on mega projects. This world truly would not be what it is if it weren't for you. So, thank you. But now, before we get into today's episode, I need to mention one more thing. As we close out this series and potentially lose visibility of our non-subscribed Satisfactory fans, I have finally taken an important step as a content creator and have set up a Discord server and a Patreon. This is both a way to keep connected until Pixel Perfect Season 2 starts after the launch of Satisfactory 1.0, and a statement that I'm here to stay. This is no longer just a hobby for me. I like creating content, I want to continue, and I want to grow. And while I give away my content for free, if you feel it has value and can afford to support the channel, that would be awesome. There will be perks, names will be listed in outros, and the Discord server has Patreon-only channels in addition to the free ones. Also, I will be making a world download for Pixel Perfect Season 1 available to all Patreons. Links are in the description below for those who are interested, and we'll probably mention it again in the outro. Okay, enough of all that. We have a world tour to get to, and we need to finish the final step of the space elevator while we're at it. Fortunately, I've been incredibly busy cleaning up parts of the world and working on some of the cinematics you'll soon be seeing. And the 1.2 million copper ingots we stored up have already been converted into copper powder, which means we need to shuttle over the Dunes Desert and set up the last step so it can be running while we're touring the world. So I'll see you there. All right, I know I said that we're going to the Dunes Desert, but we're taking a quick detour. You see, I was here in the warehouse putting together the materials for the particle accelerators that we're going to need for that final step, and I noticed something was out of place. And I want to take an opportunity both to show off mistakes, because we do that, we're human, and this also gives me a chance to talk about a strategy that I subscribe to that has actually seen some debate on the Satisfactory Discord server. And I think that this illustrates my side of the argument pretty well. And so the debate involves using buffers in your production lines. Now, I know that this is a warehouse, but it is also just a big fancy buffer, right? Because many of these materials come in and then they go back out to somewhere else. And the warehouse kind of stores them in the in-between. And as long as we are producing more than we need, these should always be full. And as you can see, our modular frames is empty. And yeah, check the spreadsheet, and we should be producing 2 more modular frames than we are using. And that's not a whole lot, but when you consider that this factory is over 800 hours old, that's plenty of time to fill up a buffer. And so this really illustrates what I find to be valuable about buffers in factories. And again, I'm not talking about warehouses, but buffers in general. So in this case, finding this to be empty indicates to us that there is a problem somewhere in our supply line. Either this is being overdrawn or undersupplied. And so what we need to do is we need to follow the lines, both directions, to find out which one it is. And in this situation, it's best to go backwards because it's a low-tier product, and we shouldn't have to go far to check out the production chain that's leading up to these, which is right here out in our little forest-themed area, our little brown and green buildings. We look out the window there, you can see the Screws building, so we're still here at home, but this is where we're producing all of our modular frames. Take a look at the recipes here. We're using reinforced plate and iron rods, and this one's at 100%. But clearly we are not at full production because they are not backing up the way they're supposed to. And so I did a little bit of investigating, and I noticed, we looked at it here, while the front buildings are managing to stay filled up, they are being supplied right here by these 3 assemblers for the reinforced plate, and we can see that this conveyor belt is not backed up, which means the machines are using it at best at the exact production rate, with overflow going off to the storage at the warehouse. But if we look at these machines, we can already see a little fluctuating yellow lighting. Look at that every now and then. And we can see that it's being undersupplied in iron plates. See, these are not full, and they really should be full because we are producing a ton of iron plates. So I did a little bit of following things back. We take a look down here. So first of all, let's take a look at that again. We need 90 iron plates per minute. And we follow the line of these conveyor belts that go under. Got a little hub here, a little logistics floor. And this is where our belt is coming in, a Mark III. It was 3 machines at 90 apiece. Is exactly 270, which is the speed of this belt. And we follow that through here. We go Mark III, a Mark III, down to a Mark II, which is appropriate, right? Mark II, because it's only 1 machine at that point. And Mark II going up, Mark II going up, Mark II going up. So the math works out here. This is not a problem. But we need to check one more thing before we go backwards. Because there's one more component to the supply chain, which is these right here where it comes up. And lo and behold, Mark I lives. And this is kind of funny to me because we built this building back in episode 14. That was like 2 years ago. And these have never run at full speed since then. Oh, that is bad. All 3 of them were Mark I. So, yeah, never too late to find a mistake. Okay, as much as I want to dwell on this, we really don't have time because we still got so much to do. So I'm going to go back to the warehouse over here and get the materials together for the particle accelerators and just let this catch up on its own. All right, here we are at the space elevator manufacturing area, and this is the I guess temporary setup that we had for the copper powder. And I think I showed most, if not all, of this in the last episode, but it's done. You can see they're all sitting idle. I haven't actually evened them out. You can see that there are still some copper ingots left in them, but as you might recall, we had our 1.2 million copper ingots stored up in this area. Oh, that's shameful. Look at that. And we had lots of overage, right? Because of all of the connectors and the belts and whatnot. This is definitely over what we need. And what we need is 200,000. So let's look at our storage. So it looks like 24,000 per large storage. That means 12,000 for a small one. We'll ignore the little 4 that we have in each one of these connectors here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and number 8 isn't full. So 24 times 7. That's 168 out of our 200. And then plus 12, right, for that top one. That means we only need 20,000 in the last one, and we have 21,000. So we are over on that, and that's fine. You know, it's not going to be a problem because we'll still get our exact numbers with the other supply product, which is the pressure conversion cubes, which are, well, they're going to be over there somewhere in the storages. But what we need first is a place to send them, because this final product uses a machine that we have not used, and that would be the particle accelerators. So I think what I'm going to do is hope that I have enough concrete on me, and these are big boys, so we're just gonna grab ourselves a spot. We do not have enough. That's fine. Let's just do a big square right here, and I think we'll let's get something here that's gonna show nicely and just kind of section this off. There we go. Everything on this side will be, you know, related to the space elevator, even though this is the last stage. But let's get one of these built so we can get a footprint for it. Yeah, look at these bad boys. Oh, that is not subtle. Fortunately, it's only 2 inputs, so not going to be a problem. We don't have to do any weird conveying. Let's lock it in place. I think we'll just have it facing this way. And of course, we don't have to worry about power. You know, these are big, power-hungry machines, but we have a ton of power. I think we pretty well centered that, didn't we? Well, that looks good. Looks good on the first shot. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's go 6 more. There we go. I'm going to go grab some concrete, and that gives us kind of a layout for what we can do. Let me get the concrete real quick, because, you know, we don't have a lot of time. You don't need to watch me flying around. And I'm going to start moving all of this over, and we'll find the pressure cubes. And what we'll do is we will run conveyors across, and I think we'll split, go that way, and come over here. Should be pretty easy. So I already have the powder coming over here. It's going way down there, coming across, and going all the way right back up. So I've just kind of reversed the whole thing, and we'll just be able to bring them right out the bottom and just go straight on in. And this is going to be, right here, is going to be the pressure cubes. You know, we have this existing line that already goes around the back that went into these other containers, and I just took over this smart splitter that we had for splitting them and set it to them. I just haven't gone over there to connect it yet. There's only like 1,000 of them, so I'm not too worried about it right now. I just kind of want to get this laid out first, then we'll sweat it. So I think we're going to do a standard kind of layout. Let's see here. Let's first, a whole lot of options here. Pellets or pasta? With pasta. Let's copy that. So 100 per minute of the powder, 0.5 per minute of the conversion cubes, and as you can see, it's going to be 0.5 per minute pasta. Now we're only making 1,000 of these. So if we bring our math back up here, 1,000 of them at 0.5 per minute is 2,000 minutes. That's a little bit much. But if we do 4 machines, it's only 500 minutes. Minutes converted to hours, 8.3 hours. I promise you, I'm going to be doing this for a lot more than 8.3 hours, setting up the rest of this episode. So that's not going to be a problem for us. So let's see here. Let's, how do we want to do this? Excellent. Love it. Love it. It's coming together beautifully. And we'll just do the same over here. You know, we just eyeballed this and it was the perfect turn. We are I'm trying to do this fast because, you know, I have so much time that we need for this video, because I've got so much I want to do and so much I want to show, and I just don't want to run out of time, you know. I'm kind of nervous about it. That should have been turned that way. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to it, right? This is the last episode. Is it? Oh, yeah, perfect. Excellent. Yeah, I think it... No, it would look funny. Just, we'll try that. If it don't work... Yeah, see, that's going to clip. Let's get rid of that one. You know, the pressure is we put on ourselves. That's kind of the way these things go, right? But I want to. Okay. Oop, flip the right way. Excellent. And we need to, of course, paste. Oh, try that again. Wire, thank you. Wire. If there was a weird jump there, it was because I hit my mouse and I ended up staring at the ground, and I might have cut that out. You know how I always make a real effort to have all of the videos be one continuous take, or at least appear as if they're one continuous take, as much as possible for, you know, continuity. I don't like it. When I watch videos from other content creators, I don't like it when there's a lot of unnecessary weird jumps. It feels, I hate to say it, but it feels lazy. Like, we have editing tools. All right. So it looks like that's going to be the bottom, just because that's where I put it. Is this going to reach? You know what? It will, but I want it to stay above until it gets there. There we go. We don't need you there. And that means we need to upgrade the top ones, but let's go get the other stuff rolling real fast here. All right, where is the pasta? Batteries. Nope, don't need that. Nope. You know, there's going to be a... Yeah, I was going to say there should be a sign. Right there it is. There we go. Exactly 1,000. Perfect. Exactly what we need. Let's just connect up right there. Let's speed up a little bit so it gets there a little sooner. All it's got to do is make it to this belt and then zoom! And of course, we still need to set up the outputs for these, but let's just get them running, because it's not exactly a high throughput for the output. So, okay, that boom, boom, perfect, excellent. All right, so we're up and running. That's all we need for now. I mean, you know, we need an output to go to a storage somewhere. That's super simple. I'm just going to quickly draw out some conveyors and just dump them into a container somewhere, and then we're going to get going, because I want to get the world tour started. And I mean, it's a whole world. We've got a whole world to tour. We won't get everything right, but I want to do a lot of the major stuff. So let's get going. So let's get the world tour started, and I can't really think of a better place to start than here at home. You know, I don't expect for us to actually do the entire world tour in order of the buildings that they were built, nor will we review all the buildings. We just don't have time for that. But we do have a lot of important locations that I want to hit and talk about, and just take a look at what we did and some of the design decisions that we made. And of course, here at home is, you know, arguably one of our most important buildings. You know, this isn't Minecraft, which is, I think, was what we said on the thumbnail of the very first episode. And so I never really meant for this to be a big, complicated house. I just wanted to have an anchor point for us to start and end our episodes at. You know, a little place for us to hang out that's familiar when we talk about things and projects and what we're doing and what we've done. And this house worked out beautifully for it. And, you know, it's a good house. It's not big, it's not complicated. It never was meant to be. You know, on the inside, we just have a little bit of space. We don't have furniture, which, you know, is not really a thing in this game. But that's fine. You know, I mean, we could drop some items around. You know, we joked in a recent episode where we made a little clubhouse, and we had a little computer there that was supposed to be the computer we were playing from. And I think I used a spindle of copper for a table. And we could have done stuff like that, but that was never meant to be the purpose of this building. You know, we did have this little sign here that we have used as a television for using a little bit of green screen and motion tracking trickery for some intros. And, you know, we got our little skylight and stuff. We did make it look homely. You know, have a garage over here where we have our vehicles parked and our little workbench in the back. I'm very happy with this house. It was never meant to be something big and complicated. It was supposed to give us an anchor point, and that's exactly what it did. You know, it gave us a nice place to stand where we could talk and stare at the skyline of our starting buildings. And it just really served its purpose, and I've always been happy with it. And you may not realize it, we actually have a working smokestack, although the particles have been turned down or are less obvious than they originally were. But as you can see, we do have smoke coming out of our smokestack. And a little detail, of course, we did that by putting a smelter in here, and it's actually a functional smelter. As you can see, we're exporting some copper out the back, which goes to the copper building proper. Because we only had one copper node in the starting area, this was really challenging. And so that was the only building that we did for our copper smelting. And they all go over there for the other copper-themed building, which we might take a look at on the tour. But right now, I want to get moving over to our first real building, which was the iron smelter. And this was an important building for me and for the series because this established what you were to expect out of me as a builder and what kind of style that I go for when playing games like this, as well as establishing the direction of this series, where we weren't going for one giant mega building where we cram everything into it and has a bunch of empty space, but rather we went modular and filled the buildings to the rafters to make them functional and give them beauty as we go. This building really showed what we were going to go for, and I'm just so happy with the way it came out. I've always been so pleased with it. I've always liked looking at it in our skyline, you know, the off-white and the soft blue with the highlights, and we have all of the balconies. It makes it look like people work here. It looks like a nice office building to work in, and that was what I was going for when I did this. And of course, it is functional. There aren't actually people going around in it because, you know, we are the only person here, even by, you know, the concept of the game, right? We are the lonely engineer on the building the factories, exploiting the resources. But I made sure that we had ways to get around the whole thing. You know, it looks like we have an unpainted railing here. I'm not going to take the time to fix that right now. I am going to come back and do it though later. But we had a nice spiral going through here. And of course, this is back before we had jetpack or we had the hover pack. And so this was the way we could get around in the building. But this is a highly efficient building, and it produces a lot of iron for early game. And it had to be put together very smartly because we had very slow belts back then, and it had to be able to supply a lot of production. And as we go out kind of back in the alley, you can see there's a bunch of different belts. We could have done this all in one belt at this point with our high-speed belts, but back then we couldn't. And so they went to all the different buildings that were going to need them. And we have windows that are left over from when we did do some upgrades and no longer needed them. And we have a bunch of little satellite buildings that are hiding the miners that are supplying the building. And if I remember correctly, we actually have 4 miners that are supplying this building. We got around here, we got on the back like that. There's another one from around somewhere. You can see it coming, oh, right there. Yeah, we didn't have a building for that one because we didn't have room for it. But that was the whole point to how we were building. We were going modular with the factory and all the buildings having a specific purpose to them. And here we have our plate building, and over here we have our screws and rod kind of combo building. And this was another big monumental building in our progress because originally this was that giant yellow shell, and I believe it was on the thumbnail for the first time when we actually got windows. We could add windows to it. Because ahead of time we built it with just big holes in the side because we knew where the windows were going to go. And so we finally got windows in and we painted this building, and it came together just beautifully. And it's a building I've always been proud of. And again, it is another building that is a product of the time because we didn't have, you know, high-speed belts. So we had to very smartly work it out to where we could do a bunch of different belts going into the nearby buildings that were going to need them. And they all combine in underneath in a little false floor, and then the overflow comes back to the building so that we have some storage for personal use, because we need screws for building some machinery. But that is really kind of our core early game. Eventually we came back into here and we expanded with other buildings that are producing things like motors and rotors and stuff that are still fairly early game that could use these local resources before we started to actually expand out to go into other satellite areas and build distant outposts. And of course, when we talk about satellite areas, not too far off in the distance, we built our first annex, which was steel. And all of our steel products came in on a superhighway that honestly is not too far. I've definitely built longer in other games, but it was even before we had our tube network. So you can see we had a big old ladder letting us up to there, but we eventually got ourselves a tube so we could get back and forth much more quickly. Let's ride across the superhighway. You can see there are some unused belts because eventually we upgraded our belt speeds and really didn't need those excess belts. In this area, honestly, a little bit of a mark of shame. This is the one area of belt spaghetti that I never got back to figuring out a good way of cleaning up. I always meant to maybe put a little building here and turn it into a nice hub, but I never did get back to it. Largely because I had worked out all of these little overflows, and it was something I'd have to figure back out and never really found the time. When we get by the electronics area, we'll be able to see what it looks like when a rework of a belt hub is done properly. But this steel area saw a lot of work. It was actually originally our first power area. This is where our coal power came from initially, but we realized that it was a much better area for making steel products. And so we tore down the power generation and converted it to steel. And you can still see some of the remnants of the coal power scheme that we had set up, because I left the water production and even the pipes in there, just kind of a reminder of what it used to be, even though we don't use water for anything here. And we have these nice floors that are underneath that are hiding all of the actual steel manufacturing. This whole thing underwent an entire rebuild after we unlocked the solid steel alternate recipe, giving us a free 50% boost in our production of steel. Honestly, one of the best recipes in the game, at least one of the best alternate recipes. But I was always very proud of this area as well. It continued the theme of building everything in a modular strategy while giving all of the buildings their own little personality and function and tying the whole area together. And of course, we'd have to go on later to have to augment some of our steel production, but those are some purpose-built on-site steel manufacturings for specific items. But beyond that, this would remain our main steel income for the entire factory, for the entire life of the game. Because we built it to last. Let's continue the world tour and move on to the next area. And since we were just talking about the logistics hub that we never got around to building in the steel area, and we were talking about how we got it right over in the electronics area, it felt like this would be a good time to switch over to the electronics hub for our world tour. Now, this area is incredibly dense, and honestly, it didn't quite come out the way I envisioned. And that's not my fault. That was because of update 6. And if you were around while we were working on this, you might remember that that big orange building over there used to be right here where this pillar was. And when I had originally envisioned this area, these buildings had some more space between them for us to run the conveyors and just use more of the space over in here that got pushed out when update 6 came out and they rebuilt that entire biome. Now, I'm not mad about it. That's fine. I knew ahead of time that they were going to do a rework of the biome. I did not expect them to do such an aggressive rework, but in the long run, it was worth it. This biome is so beautiful over there that I was willing to take that hit. But we're not going to go building by building. It really is a little too dense because we lost our space. We had to move that over the water. But we are going to take a look at the logistics floor, the belting logistics, that we came here and reworked. And this, again, was a rework. It was not so good at first, and I knew that when I first put in this train hub. It was a temporary. It was a very shallow floor. It was only maybe a couple of wall heights tall, and it was just total spaghetti. But I always intended to come back and fix it, and I did after we had more of our buildings in place. And what we did is we doubled the height of it and just really gave it the treatment. And honestly, of all the things that I've accomplished in this series, this is the room that I most enjoy being in. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things that we've done, and there's a lot of areas I like looking at. But when we talk about just hanging out in an area, I have spent a lot of time just hanging out in this room. I like what we accomplished here, you know, all of the belts going everywhere, going different speeds. The area is beautiful. The lighting works out so well with the coated floor and the color pattern to it. And this is logistics done right. You know, not only do we have, of course, our measured belt speeds, not just everything generically going one speed, but we also have signs everywhere explaining what the belts are using. You know, how much is coming in, how much is being used, 100% is being used in this case. Over here, this is just, you know, how much quick wire can come down here. And it's just, you know, everywhere you go. You know, I worked on this floor well over a year ago, and I can still come in here and tell exactly what everything is and what it means. So if I needed to change this stuff, I wouldn't have to spend any time researching it or following lines. I can just look at the signs and it tells me exactly what everything is doing. You know, for example, this sign here is telling me that this plastic is going to 2 machines that require 52.5 apiece, totaling 105 plastic per minute. And if we follow that plastic line back to its source, right here we are. We know that we have a potential of 600 coming in, and we're eating 105. That lines up with that other sign, with 495 left over. Now, this is no longer completely accurate because we have since built other outposts that are also taking part of that 495, but we do have a spreadsheet that tracks all that, so that's not a big deal. But this place is just, I just love this. I just love this room. I love everything about this room. It feels safe being in here. I love watching all the overflow products slowly work their way across into this strange one belt that just kind of gobbles it all up. And all this is going back home to the warehouse. But there is one area here that I do want to do a quick look at, and we got a little cinematic for it. Something that we did that was really out of our comfort zone. It was literally off the grid, which was our cliffs of copper. We needed a whole bunch of copper sheeting, and that building up there is producing an obscene amount of copper ingots using an alternate recipe. But that meant we also needed a crazy amount of constructors to turn all of it into copper sheeting. And rather than make some big building, what we did is we built a bunch of platforms hanging off of these cliff sides and orchestrated all the belts to go between them, all of it mathed to the right speeds, to distribute all those copper ingots in and all the copper sheeting back out so they could flow through all the buildings that needed them and into the electronics hub. I was very pleased with how that came out. That was quite an accomplishment and quite a challenge, both with the design and with getting everything to line up just perfectly. Because even if we're off the grid, it is still pixel perfect. But if you want to see more of the electronics hub, honestly, I suggest going back and watching some of those old videos. Because we came and went from this area several times and put so much production in the area, you could really consider it a secondary base. But I think that's all the time we can spend here because we still have plenty to cover. You know, since we were talking about the Spire Coast, I figured we could hop over here. We were in the neighborhood. You could... Oh, you're not going to get in the way of the trains. Thank you for your service. All right. This area, I mean, what else can you say? It's just gorgeous. It's just they outdid themselves. And we tried to kind of honor the work that the developers put into this area by complementing it with big glass, beautiful buildings. And these are just such fine work. I am so pleased with them. And I'm gonna go inside real quick and take a look. We're not gonna spend much time in here because, again, time. But, we had these big glass walkways so we could look around and enjoy the environment and just see everything. And, it's also pretty cool to be able to do that with buildings because you can see into them from the outside and kind of see what they're doing, as well as, of course, being able to see from the outside. Go. And this was a kind of innovative building where we have the whole thing is kind of sitting in the cradle. And we have the solid walkways to go up and down, and then everything else is glass, so you can take a look outside. And this was another very packed building. Every little bit of space is used, and it really is kind of two buildings in one because each side mirrors and flips so that we have double production of our products here, which is circuit boards. This entire huge building is just circuit boards, and everything's colored beautifully. Oh, yes. We did this one on live stream. In fact, this, I think, was the longest live stream that we ever did. And that was because a regular viewer of the channel back then was in the hospital. We had, set out to do the live stream, and they joined the stream, to watch, and mentioned that they were in the hospital. And, they were watching us to kind of escape, from what they were dealing with. And, the viewers and we all kind of agreed that we were going to stream until they were tired and wanted to sleep. And I think it turned out to be about a 12-hour stream. But we got a lot done, and it was great to hang out with them, and, it felt good to help somebody out, give them something to distract them while they weren't feeling well. But this building really is a collaboration. We got to talk a lot about some of the design elements as we went, and it is a good example of how even a good vision can become a better one when we collaborate. And I always take feedback from viewers, and I know for a fact that this world is better because of it. But we would return to this area a couple of times. First, we would come to this area because we were running shy on rubber, of all things. And so we built this giant purpose-built rubber plant, and that's all it produces. It actually produces not only rubber, but it produces plastic and then recycles it back into rubber. But this shored up our supply, which was convenient because we ended up needing more of it on our very last building that we built in this series. Last episode, right there, which is our cooling system manufacturing. And again, we tried to keep within the area. We colored it to match with the coral around it. And I think it came out great. It's got a drone hub in the middle. Yeah, we really nailed this. And we were able to stay within the theme of the area, stay true to the idea and the vision. And I think that it was a worthy build to close out the series. Beautiful, well thought out, and not some crazy mega build. It really exemplified what we were trying to do with this series. But if we're going to talk about mega builds and long live streams, I think we need to transition to the power grid. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up with coal. And not far from our electronics hub is our coal power. Now, as I mentioned before, this wasn't our original site for the coal power. It was where our steel is now, but this was definitely a better site for it. And it seems to have gotten a little overgrown since we were last here. They upgrade the biomes and they rework them, and plants and stuff reappear, but that's okay. And this, of course, is also not just coal, but compacted coal. Now, not the entire area, because we did need that sulfur and compacted coal for other things, especially once we got turbo fuel up and running. But as we go up each layer, this is where our first set of batteries were actually hidden away. And our assemblers are making compacted coal and sending them up to the coal plants up above. And everything's all colored nice and neatly, and it's all sharp. And I was very pleased again with how this came out. Nice stark colors, bright contrast. And we would return to the area multiple times. First to add a second branch, and then to double it again. And those are all just using regular coal. But we had more coal in the area, and of course it was all next to water, so it was easy to tap that. And it bought us time so we could push back making turbo fuel until we were ready to do it properly. And I know that some people are not big fans of turbo fuel. They feel like it's a waste of sulfur, but not me. I love the stuff. And it's our next stop on the tour. When I think about the turbo fuel plant, I always kind of forget that we built a summer home here. Yeah, so this was a two-parter, and we ended the previous episode not back at home like we normally do. And I think it was the first time that we did that. And so as a joke, I rebuilt the house here. And I just threw down some stuff just for a little distraction. And when we start the next episode, it looks like we're in the house. And we turn around and look, ta-da! Summer home. Of course, it wasn't all built yet, but you could see that there was progress being made and where we were at. But we're not going to approach it from here. We're going to actually fly up and over. Get back into my little ride here. Because we made a special entrance for the train. Because we needed a way of getting a train in and out and getting all that material out. And we could have, of course, just put the station outside, but we wanted to do something a little special. Gonna follow this guy in. So we did a tunnel network under the whole build. And of course, this was back before we had headlights on our trains, so this area was a lot darker and a little more ominous. But it still is pretty awesome, honestly. Get out here, let's not run into that train, no, stop! Alright. Pick you up, there we go. Okay, and this is indicative of fuel plants, is that they have a lot of generators, especially when you go into turbo fuel, because they're very efficient. So we have a massive field of generators to use up all that turbo fuel that we're creating. And this is also, of course, our primary plastic and rubber intake. So this area is dual purpose. And for the most part, the plastic and rubber would carry us throughout the entire series. Of course, as we mentioned, there was some rubber augmentation that we did in the Spire Coast. I don't think that we had to augment our plastic anywhere. But for the most part, we follow the philosophy of go big or go home. Because in the future, you're going to need more anyway. And that's what we did here. Of course, we just tapped all the oil nodes, overclocked them as much as we could, and then we just mathed it all out from there and mapped up a nice area. And if I remember correctly, this area produced somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 gigawatts. Pretty respectable for a single site power production facility that isn't just focused on power. Because again, it is a rubber and plastic primary production source. But of course, we would eventually use up all of this power, which would lead us to our first truly mega project. And of course, that would be the Tower of Power. This was by far the largest building that we built. In fact, it is the largest building that we built the entire series. You can see it from pretty much anywhere on the map. And it earned its name from a friend of the channel, Lady Ha Gaming, who's a fellow content creator, and she also has some Satisfactory series. And we built it over, I think it was 7 live streams. It was quite a project, and it was a project that we did in conjunction with doing other things. We didn't stop doing other productions in the world. We did this dedicated to live stream only. And outside of doing some troubleshooting and, just doing some off-screen connecting of pipes and whatnot, it was entirely done on live stream. And this was before we had blueprints in the game. This would have taken a lot less time, but it definitely took north of 100 hours. And you just really can't get an appreciation of the scale without kind of standing at the base of it. But it was quite a monumental project, and of course, as usual, we did the math by exploiting the maximum resource in the area, which of course was fuel, and turning it into diluted fuel by mixing it with water, sitting at the roof and unpacking it so that we could gravity feed the fuel back down to all the generators and not have to worry about those wonky mechanics that we kind of get in trouble with sometimes in this game. One of my favorite features of this building is all of the conveyor lifts that go up and down the side of the building and on the back of it. There's a lot of beautiful symmetry to it and a lot of chaotic order all at the same time. Along with, I think, a very nice paint job. We have the waterfall mosaic as if the building is erupting out of the lake, and the majestic eagle on the front of it, framed by the piping that is carrying all of the fuel to the various generators. But this was a great project and had a wonderful time with all the viewers that hung out while we were building it, and I have many fond memories of it. I also never want to have to do it again without blueprints. But while we're in the area, we might as well also take a look at the Illuminati. Now this build was another beautiful build where we stretched our themes even further. Of course, we stuck with doing modular construction, but also we took it further, the idea that there were actually workers on the planet. We've done that with a number of buildings where we had some railings or balconies, but we took it to the nth degree on this one. Having a driving path for cars to come up and go. We had a guard shack. And all of the buildings have their own unique look to them. I think they came out wonderfully. We have VIP parking up in this area where the executives get to park. And then we have, where the regular workers have to park. And it's like they're all here at work. You can see there's a bunch of different colored cars and trucks all parked through here. We even got that one person who can never park quite right. Yeah, that guy, he works here too. And I really worked hard making sure all the buildings had their own unique look to them. And we even have our little industrial disposal area out here, which is common amongst actual factories. And I have worked not only in warehouses, but in factories as well. And so I kind of wanted to capture that. It's an entire complex that works together, but yet each building is its own. We had recycling bins and trash out there. And these back walls, they're there to hide the work that's going on behind the scenes to kind of create a facade. So there's not actually anything behind these doors. They're just there to hide, the conveyors and the trains that are going past it. Although we do like to see the trains, in this particular build, it was supposed to be about, the individual people who are working here. Having all these nice areas they can look at, and all the trucks and vehicles that are going around. So this guy's, probably late to work, or maybe he's off to lunch. And we have the big industrial trucks, as it's either backing in to drop off his load, or it's leaving. And we have one over here that's parked in the area where they keep them when they're not in use. And we had what I kind of envisioned as a company logo here. That's kind of what I was going for with this. And it's just, I was always so pleased with this. We have a no entry even for the trolleys because it's an employee area. We had to make sure that they're safe. And this is, I think, maybe my favorite build. I know that, I say that I really love a lot of my builds, and I'm incredibly pleased with what we accomplished. But this one has more storytelling built into it than I think anything else that we've done. And it's kind of funny, we had a really good reception throughout the mini-series that it took to build this, with lots of views, until the final episode where we finished it. And I don't know, I tried something different with the thumbnail, and crazy how a bad thumbnail can crash an episode. I ended up updating the thumbnail, but I think the damage was done after that. But that's okay, as a content creator, I am still learning, and I don't really like to play the gotcha thumbnail game. I like to kind of be honest about what you should see going into a given video that I've made, because your time is valuable and I don't want to trick people into clicking. But while we're still here on the southern end of the map, let's make a quick run by of the battery outpost, not because of what it makes, but because of what it became in the process. So the battery factory kind of is a story into itself. I had decided to exploit this area because of the nearby resources, but I also struggled to get the platform in here just enough to be able to get a couple of stations down. And it really is a tight, tight fit. So much so that I had to get real creative with the output of the two stations because I couldn't make them far enough apart for them to share an exit. So as you can see, we're right up against the rocks, and the outputs crisscross and then they merge back on the way out, which also made for a rather convoluted merger and intersection, but we worked it out. But that's not why we're here. We're here because after I had gotten all that built and had worked out the logistics, and before it really started on the building, I discovered that this location isn't exactly as isolated as I thought it was. But since I had put so much effort into getting those stations packed into this tiny space, I was too stubborn to leave. So instead, I altered the building to take into account the local feature that I didn't originally realize was here. And that would be the big blue moth. So yeah, we kind of turned this into a moth aviary. Now of course he does touch some of the conveyors, but as you can see, he clears through the building. He doesn't touch any of the machines. This took an incredible amount of time because he's not exactly fast. And it's got a big loop, so every time he came through here, I had to try to map out where his wingtips were a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so I built the machines to work around him, and I painted it to kind of look like it was a tree with, you know, some greenery in the canopy. And eventually we accomplished it. That's why we got the big gaping openings for him to fly through, because we didn't want to impact his habitat. But while we're down here, we might as well continue across the southern coast to our most recent large-scale project that represented the vision that I had long before we were ready to build it. Here we have our towers in the mist. I had tagged this area for building a long way before we actually came around here and developed it because, you know, we needed something worth building here. We needed a large-scale project that would actually take up the space necessary to make these buildings large enough. Because you might be familiar with the way I talk about mega builds and how other content creators approach the game. And I don't want it to sound like I criticize the way other content creators play the game because, well, that's the important thing, is that we all do these things differently. And there are some content creators who go total crazy mega build and really make it work. But sometimes you see where people will make big buildings to look pretty, but they're hollow inside. And I wanted this to be a fully functional set of towers, which required us to have a project that had enough steps in it in order to fill the buildings. And we found that project in turbo motors. And this in itself was a mini-series. It took quite a bit of time to build this. You know, building in the mist when you really can't see far away is challenging enough in itself. But also, because this is a mostly independent building, it meant bringing in raw resources from multiple sites in order to accomplish all the different sub-products that were necessary to bring together the final product. And it does do a little bit of everything. It has its own aluminum manufacturing in it. It requires nitrogen to be imported. It has steel manufacturing. It does it all. But this building really came together in the way I envisioned it. And I'm always pleased when I have, you know, something in mind that I want to bring to life and where the reality meets the vision in my head. And this definitely did. And it was no small task bringing it to life. In fact, we moved this entire building, I think 3 times just to get the location right. But this building came out wonderfully. I love the way it looks from the outside. I love the way it looks from the inside, looking down the middle so you can see the different floors working together. The fact that we have a drone delivering down in the middle, and what it's like to ride a train in and out of the mist. Yeah, we definitely knocked this one out of the ballpark. I don't think there's anything I would have done differently. But it's time to move on to the final building that we're going to review in this world tour. And last, but certainly not least, Lagville. I mean, the electromagnetic Fabergé egg. Oh yeah, this was also just kind of an idea that just grew and grew. You know, we came out here because of the resources that were out here. We were trying to exploit an idea. You know, we had our Mark III miners, and I wanted to see just how much could we produce from a really rare resource, and we maxed it out at 780 per minute. And that's what we did. We came out here, we hit a Caterium node right down there, and we produced 780 Caterium per minute off of one node, generating somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,500 quick wire per minute. And out of that, we built the electromagnetic Fabergé egg. Yeah, this is a electromagnetic control rod facility, but we spiced it up a little bit. And we decided that, you know, the whole build was built around the train. It was passing through all the refineries so that we could see things operating. And we kept just kind of exploiting that idea of how much can we see as we're riding around in the train. Well, normally you really don't see a whole lot because it comes in, hits the station, and leaves. But I wanted to see more. So what we ended up doing is kind of turning it into a Disney ride. It's a little bit of a roller coaster, so you can go through, and as you can see, there is a lot going on in here. We made sure we passed through as much as possible, and it really created a unique challenge because of a relatively tight footprint. And of course, we don't want to have anything clipping. We can't have belts running through the rails. We can't have machines overlapping. No, we had to really work to pack everything in here. And to add to that complication is getting all that quick wire in and out of the different locations that it's needed. But we nailed it. We got it to work. And it is just phenomenally awesome. And the developers have talked about a lot of the improvements in 1.0 when it comes to performance. And I'm really hoping to load this old world up after 1.0 comes out just to ride this around in this area and see how smooth it runs. This is going to be the litmus test for me in 1.0 to see how much their performance has impacted the game. Because we do have a lot of stuttering through here, and that's why I'm moving as slow as I can. But also to give you more time to check out the roller coaster ride in case you didn't actually see the episode. But this building came out wonderfully, and I am so pleased with it. We did not compromise, which is what we do here. We do not compromise. And we came up with something creative and interesting and still managed to do something different from other things that we've done in the factory. I think I said this was going to be the last building, but you know what? We actually have one more very important building to do, and if we skipped it, well, we'd be getting coal in our stocking because it's Santa's workshop. Yeah, I can't believe I almost forgot about Santa's workshop. Santa would have been so mad at me. I definitely would have gotten coal in my stocking this year. This was really a cool building. It was a lot of fun to do. And it's kind of the reverse of what we do in a lot of other buildings, where this was entirely about the aesthetic, and we just packed everything that we could inside that building. I mean, of course, there's an incredible amount of math going on because we decided to do 4 Mark V lines of gifts, which is supplied by the tree farm that we have. But once you have that many gifts, you're talking about a serious amount of machines to process all of it. And we needed to have the building look like a cabin out in the woods or out in the frozen Arctic and still kind of remain proportional in size. And so that resulted in what is easily the most machine-dense building we have in the entire factory. Now, I would like to run around in it and show you the interior, but instead we're going to use a cinematic because getting around inside this building is a little bit of a nightmare. While I did include access points to get to all the different parts, it's still a real challenge to find where you're going and to get to all the different things. And this building has actually seen a revisit because our map is old enough to have seen 2 Fixmas events. And you might have noticed, of course, the machines are running even though it's not Fixmas. That's because I loaded up a mod that enables the Fixmas event anytime you want it, so that there would be some movement in this review of the building. But I had a lot of fun making it. I was so very pleased with how it came out. It really looks like what could be a Santa's workshop from the outside. We consider that it's a manufacturing hub for all the toys for all the boys and girls. So of course it's going to be as large as a warehouse. And we even built a little side area for the workers to be able to go out and relax and walk amongst the trees, in between their shifts. And in the second year, when we revisited this project, we added a little side hut out back that's supposed to be like the logging hut where all the wood's stored, but is what we're using to store all the fireworks and some of the other intermediate products, just to make them easier to access. And as a part of the revamp, we also made Santa's sleigh, along with the 12 harnessing posts for the reindeer. Of course, it's not Christmas, so the reindeer are not currently hooked up to it, but they've already started stacking some presents on it, preparing for the next event. Okay, that officially concludes the world tour. There, of course, are a lot of buildings that we didn't get to, but that's quite all right. I mean, we're talking about 2 years and almost 900 hours worth of playtime. There's going to be way more than we can cover in one video, especially when we are sharing that video with the completion of the space elevator, which is right next to Santa's workshop. That was just kind of by chance. It was never meant to be a permanent location, but we just kept using it and kept using it and kept growing it. And as much as I meant to tear it down, I really don't want to, because it's a monument to the amount of effort we put into getting this done. And we have 3 products left to send back home to the space elevator. So let's jump to each one of them. Over here we have our magnetic field generators waiting to be shipped. At the top of the assembler stack, we have all of our thermal propulsion rockets waiting to be shipped. And finally, we have the last of our nuclear pasta rolling off the line. The last 2 that we need, and the final product for the final step of the space elevator. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to run back over to the station. And even though we do have the Spire Express, which is that train right over there that has worked so dutifully at going out and getting materials for the space elevator and bringing final products back to the space elevator, I think the honor of the final trips needs to be given to our personal train, which has served us so well throughout this series. Now, of course, we don't actually have any open slots on the train right now. Yeah, we might have accidentally double pulled these for an item, and I just haven't unloaded them yet. And here we have all of the portable miners from cleaning up around the map. So what I'm going to do is build a freight platform here, unload this car, and start loading up all the space elevator stuff. And then we'll start ferrying it back home. So I'll just meet you there. All right, this is a little awkward. You know how we've had problems in the past with items disappearing when we have exact numbers, and it's always related to the space elevator because that's where we always have our exact numbers. And by the way, even though I didn't show it, the last 2 products that we made, they also came shy up on something that we had already pre-measured out. Anyway, that's not the point here. The point is that I'm at the space elevator. I wanted to make sure that we had the right numbers that we were bringing in, and we are 16 shy of the assembly director systems. And I know that we delivered a full 4,000, or at least we made them. So 16 of them have disappeared somewhere. So you can see on the right, I have a little bit of a shopping list I put together. This is what's going to be required for me to make the replacements of it. So we're going to fire up the old original, or secondary original, I think. Oops. Oh. Secondary area that we used for manufacturing parts for the space elevator, which is right here. This is, there's the belt that goes to the space elevator. And normally this would be the final product coming out. This was a long time ago that we used this. I think what we're going to need to do is redirect these. No. What we need to do is, this is what, I knew I had a system here. So this is a smart splitter that would allow products to pass through to the elevator that we needed. And if we were doing intermediary parts, we could shift them over to there. So we need to start with automated wiring. Let's see here. And by the way, we do have the train bouncing back and forth, so we could see materials coming down these belts at any point in time, assuming that I didn't mess up a load or unload or, whatever, whatever. But of course, we don't have enough time to watch all this be done, so I'm going to do this off camera. Automated wiring. Here we are. Yeah, so we're going to copy and paste this here. And I'm going to run and start filling my inventory up with that shopping list so that we can run these and we can just dump them here in the containers and they'll just fill out, and then they'll cycle around, and then we'll have them for the next step, which would be the adaptive control units. We need 32 of those. All right, materials coming down yet? No. All right, let me get this started. Oh, actually, there's our train. There's our train. Did it unload? I did. Okay. All right. I literally had just paused to start filling up my inventory. We want to see the first ones making their way, just to make sure that we didn't do anything silly. There they are. Yes, we could have a faster belt, but at this point, it's not going to matter because we kind of make all those other bits. I'll speed it up if I need to. I just want to make sure they get through all of the splitters and mergers. Which maybe we could speed up a little bit. There we go. There we go. All right, it's all going in the right place. Okay, let me start shopping. Can you believe it? It happened in real time. I put the exact amount of wire in there, and we're too shy. What is going on here? Fortunately, we have our own personal stash. Where is it? There we are. See, I had an exact stack on me, which means it wasn't like I accidentally had that left on me, which would have been possible anyway because I emptied my inventory before shopping so that everything, literally everything, would be exact. Oh, goodness. I really hope they have fixed those problems by the 1.0. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. We had exact numbers just as we were starting to load everything. Look, 6, 4, 6 missing. I have to remanufacture all this. Oh, they better fix this. It's only taken me weeks to create this episode. What's an extra hour or two? Okay, hold please. All right, I've got the materials with me, and I'm hand delivering them this time because I'm just not taking any risks. Well, hand delivering in the sense that we still have to have, factory do things for us. We like conveyor belts. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. That should be all of it. Oh, those really are cool. Probably should make a few extra and, scatter them around the house for decoration. Maybe next series. All right, speed up. We ain't got all day. Yes, I get it. That didn't help a whole lot because it's going to a Mark 1 belt. But, I could delete that sooner. Go. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Gotta watch them. If any of them get lost on their way there, I'm gonna delete the game. Done. Woohoo! All right, boys and girls, here it is, the last tier. Final phase of early access, Employee of the Planet. Whew. Delivery will unlock a small reward in the Austin Shop. We have something else we need to do in the Austin Shop anyway before we close out the series. All right, without further ado, there it is. Oh, there it goes. Yay! We win! Woo! Oh, yeah. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. Okay. Oh, look, I didn't crash my PC with that one. Okay, so back to the house, and we gotta do our final thing. Our final thing, we gotta wrap it up. And we are at home for the last time. Oh, that is bittersweet. I love this place, and I'm gonna miss it. But I mentioned we have just one small thing left to do right here at home. Don't have to go anywhere. Just gonna go right here to this awesome sink. We're going to print our coupons. We have 811 of them. Now the big old coupon. Oh, give me, please. Please. Can I have that? Thank you. All right. Collected all of our coupons. We have a few left in the locker somewhere. Let's see, are they here? Oh yeah, there they are. I need some space. Let's dump a couple of things here. Just get out of inventory space. All right, just a little breathing room there. And we got a couple of things to purchase. First, we're going to go over to, where is it? Equipment. The Employee of the Planet Cup. That's what we just earned by completing the game. So let's take that, add that cart, and of course, where is it? Da-da-da, the Golden Nut. The most expensive thing you can buy in the game. Add that to the cart as well. Buy all. Ching! Grab that, grab that. Right over here. Our golden nut right there, maybe. I'd like to have got a little bit better of an angle on that. Let's turn it a little bit. I think it's based on the thing it's sitting on. That's actually pretty decent, right? Because we come in here, I mean, it is all over with, right? We're not coming back, but yeah, you know what? That's fine. I think that's good. That's a pretty good size, too. I like that. Nice. And last but not least, finally, we get to relax because we've done our job. Whew. All right, folks. This is it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know what I can say that I didn't say in the intro, other than if you're actually here after what I know is a very, very long episode. Thank you very much. And I mentioned offhand, I think, that I have now started a Patreon because, honestly, this is no longer just a hobby for me. And if you'd like to support the channel, believe me, every little bit will go a long way. And a Discord server, it's going to take a little time to build up a community, but it will be an easier way for us to interact, talk about upcoming projects, or just to hang out and chat. Both the Patreon and Discord are kind of in development. I will improve them as I go along. I am, of course, planning on a Pixel Perfect Season 2 sometime after 1.0 comes out, though it will not be the day of the launch. We have to wait for the mod managers to get updated and all the mods, as well as, depending how soon or long it is before they do it, I wouldn't mind a little bit of a break. There are some other things I want to do, and we're going to get back to live streaming and some other games I would like to check out while we wait. But if you enjoyed this, and I hope you did, either this episode or the series, stop by the comment section and let me know if you're looking forward to Season 2. Be sure to leave a like, and we're really trying to push the 1,000 subscriber mark, so if you haven't subscribed, it's free. Consider clicking the button. I love you guys, and I sure hope to see you in Season 2. But in the meantime, check out all my other stuff. Vocata out. If you enjoyed this, you may want to check out one of these other videos, and thank you very much for your time.